Hello, welcome to another episode of Smell Good, Feel Good Fragrance. I'm David. Thank you for joining. Before we get into this, don't forget to hit subscribe, hit the bell, and then you can stay up to date with all things fragrance related. This is a first for me. I have done maybe 10, 15 videos. I've never really felt like I wanted to do a top 10 or a top 5 or anything particular. However, you know, I've now had a 7-8 month period of time making videos, getting into my fragrances, and I figured now that I've had some experience, I've done a range of videos, that it was maybe now time to start looking at that. Hopefully because it's useful for you, only in terms of my opinion. So this is my view of fragrances I own that I love. It's not exhaustive. Obviously, it's not exhaustive, and these are my opinions. You absolutely can disagree. In fact, it would be weird if you didn't. So, this is my top 5 fragrances for the winter months. 5 fragrances. I'll pop the individual information for each one of those down below. They're in order of what I would go for, so they go from 5 to 1, number 1 being my favourite of them all. But before we start those, there are 2 honourable mentions as well. One, I've just done a video about a couple of days ago, which is Dunhill, the original Dunhill Icon. Now, this has a citrus set of top notes. It's neroli and it's petitgrain, and it is bergamot. However, it's an honourable mention because it's got lavender in there, because it's got cardamom in there. It's not as bright, it's not as citrusy. There's a middle that's a much more mellow, slightly spicy because of the cardamom as well. There's some black pepper also. And this is an honourable mention. It's not my favourite scent, however, it's a very safe scent. So if you're looking for something for the winter months that's not going to be too imposing, because not everyone likes wearing thick, heavy scents, I can understand that. You know, things like Tobacco Vanille from Tom Ford, things like Amouage from Interlude Man from Amouage, they might for you be too thick, too heavy, and you might feel actually they're not scents that suit you, but you want something that's not really bright and aquatic or citrus. And so for me, as an honourable mention, Dunhill Icon, very comfortable. You could wear it in the summer as well, so if you're someone that only wants 1 or 2 scents or just wants a signature scent, then this is definitely worth looking at. Cardamom, lavender, bergamot, neroli at the top. Nice, fresh open, but it's tempered by that cardamom, like I say, but definitely an honourable mention and good longevity at about 6 hours with nice projection too. Second honourable mention, and some of you, if you watch my video, might be surprised this is in my list. However, I think that as unbelievably good a scent fragrance it is such a classy smell, because it has a lot of iris in it, that it's maybe not an everyday scent. It's maybe something that I wouldn't want to wear all the time, because for me, there's a formality to it. It feels like I should be wearing it to an evening do. I should be wearing a suit, or I should be wearing smart casual clothing within a nice setting, doing something more than just a day-to-day travelling around running errands. And that is Dior Homme the Parfum. It is one of my all-time favourite scents. I have another bottle of this. We thought it was going to disappear. It's not. I bought a second bottle regardless. There is a leather note. There is a lot of iris. There's a slight orangey scent that cuts through the top as well. Definitely a winter scent. One of the longest lasting fragrance, genuinely, that I've ever worn. However, I love it. I just don't wear it as much because it almost feels too good to wear every day. And that might sound arrogant, it might sound ridiculous, but if you get a chance to smell it, or even if you smell the intense version, which is more accessible and easier to find in fragrance stores, it doesn't hit you as an everyday scent, and that's why it's an honourable mention, but not in my top 5. So, what is in my top 5? So, this is a range of scents. Some of them kind of share similarities in that there's kind of tobacco, saffron, certain notes. They're slightly, different. There's not a theme necessarily, but these, for me, like I say, are my 5 favourite fragrances that I have been wearing. Picked them out, had a think, and I put them in the order out of which I would like. If I could only, for example, keep one of them, which would be number 1, and then going down. We'll start at the bottom, and that is Tom Ford Ombre Leather. Now, Tuscan Leather. I don't own Tuscan Leather, I own similar fragrances. For me, the Tom Ford has maybe a slightly purer leather. It's got less time. It's got a slightly different raspberry note. And actually on my skin, it becomes slightly more animalic than it does as a top fragrance. So from the bottle, I get that slightly sharp raspberry on top of leather. On my skin, it's become slightly more animalic leather, which I like. It loses a little bit of the raspberry, and that's probably why it's at number 5. However, it's a great scent. The pricing, it's gone up and down a little bit. It's an EDP concentration, but it's about £120. You can pick it up for about 90 if you've got, you know, at the moment over Christmas, there are kind of 20% off deals at Fragrance Shop and the Perfume Shop. But you're still looking at about £90 plus for 100ml. So it's not the cheapest of fragrances. It is obviously the signature range rather than the private blend range, which is why it is more affordable than the private blend. It's a great scent. It's the kind of scent I will wear on a day where I'm really not in a good mood, or I just don't care about a day. Something's happened, I'm a bit pissed. It's a great scent to match that, you know, to match that feeling. I haven't worn it as much as I did last year, and that's because some of the other fragrances. So number 5, Tom Ford Ombre Leather. I would probably buy another bottle when this runs out, if the price hasn't skyrocketed. I certainly like it. Certainly smells great. 5 or 6 hours on my skin, which is a little disappointing, but that I think has become a trait with certainly a lot of Tom Ford scents and a lot of scents in general. They don't last as long as previously you'd expect them to, and that's because there have been changes around what you can put into fragrances. See my video, you know, early on about that, and it's unfortunately something that's common across a lot of scents. Good projection, nice projection. Certainly people will ask you what you're wearing. Some people won't like it because of that animalic leather, so that's why it's number 5, Tom Ford Ombre Leather. At number 4, kind of a cheapie really, but a surprising cheapie, and one that if you do some research you'll see lots of people talk and praise about. I picked this up at TK Maxx for £20, so I really can't complain. You can pick it up for under 40, and that is Bentley for Men Intense. It is a heavy incense, oud. There's some cinnamon and some saffron in there. What I'm so impressed about, and why I love this, is that for a car manufacturer, for a very, very open, common designer fragrance, this smells unbelievably good. I didn't necessarily believe that it's a niche scent in a designer bottle, but there's a whiskey note, strong whiskey note. Then you get that cinnamon, bit of oud, some amber coming through. Very cozy, more unique than lots of designer scents, and when you combine it with the price, it's superb. It is quite a heavy scent because of that incense, because of that whiskey. It has a little bit of that kind of barnyardy funk that you get from oud fragrances. Not heavy, but again, if you're someone that prefers to wear citrus scents, prefers to wear something like Acqua di Gio, or prefers to wear Invictus, or likes Creed, one of those scents, you may find this is such a shift the other way. You may not like heavy scents. I didn't for a long time. I didn't like a lot of those kind of Eastern inspired fragrances, the kind of oriental heavy scents. I do now, but be warned, this in some ways is more polarizing than the Tom Ford because it has that thick, rich incensiness that comes through on top of the whiskey. But it also lasts for 5 or 6 hours plus, which considering the price is unbelievably good. Very unique, really good quality. You can't smell the chemicals or fixants or any of those things. What you smell is a nice fragrance that is linear, yes, but has good progression. So that's my number 4, Bentley for Men Intense. Really good option to pick up. On to number 3. And it's a video that I did recently. It's Mancera Red Tobacco. It's at my number 3, mainly because of price. The cost for how much I wear it. It's a great scent. I probably should wear it more. I just don't. It's 120ml, so it's not bad that you get the large bottle. Cinnamon, vanilla, tobacco. Sweet, but not overly sweet. Like a jammy Dodger biscuit, as I said before. Really good longevity, quite strong. You know, announces your arrival before you maybe even walk into a room. This is at number 3 just because For whatever reason, the other two fragrances I've just enjoyed wearing a lot more this winter period. If I do another video in 2020, I'm sure these will change. But number 3 is Mancera. About £175 roughly, and it's a 120ml bottle at EDP, and it definitely has a high oil concentration, so you're getting good quality and good value in terms of longevity. It's just a scent that I don't wear as much as the other two, but it's definitely a strong contender. And actually, between number 3 to number 1, there's not a lot to pick. Number 3 to 2 and number 1 just come down to me and what I personally am enjoying at the moment. But number 3, Red Tobacco by Mancera. If you like tobacco scents, if you want something slightly sweet, that's not too kind of fresh, wet tobacco, but something a little bit more gourmand, something a little bit more cozy, then this is definitely worth a look. On to number 2, and number 1 and number 2 are interesting picks. I picked this up, I think it was 20% off when I threw through Terminal 3. It's from Maison Margiela, and it's from the Replica range, and it is by the fireplace. It is vanilla, it is smoke, and the Replica range, if you haven't had a chance really, the Replica range is more about creating a memory and a mood and an environment. So their feeling, there's Jazz Club, there's In the Library, and their whole idea with the Replica range is to create that feeling of being by the fireplace or in a jazz club. So this has got, there's vanilla, there's smoke, there's that smell of burning fresh wood that if you've been in a, an alpine lodge, or if you've been into a house with an open fire. Sweet, smoky, vanilla, maybe a little bit of whiskey mixed in there as well. And it's just unbelievably unique. And I think for me, that's why it comes above the other 3 so far. Very few people I know wear Replica. So when you do wear it, people ask, what are you wearing? People want to know what you're wearing. It's unusual. That smokiness, that vanilla-iness is really cozy. On a cold day when you're wrapping a jumper around you to keep warm and you get a whiff of this, it makes you feel cozy and warm and comfortable inside. It invokes that feeling of being by a fireplace. And they, for a company that puts on their bottles reproductions of familiar scents and moments of varying locations and periods, you've got to back that up. And this one, particularly from this range, this in Jazz Club, absolutely invokes those feelings for me. This makes me feel of being by a fireplace, back with my family when we used to set a fire over the cold periods. And for that reason, it's up at number 2, because they do what it does what it's meant to. It lasts, it's cozy, not big projection, it's a very intimate fragrance, and I kind of like that as well. I want my fragrances to be as much for me as the people around me. So number 2, Replica, Maison Margiela, from the range by the fireplace. You can pick it up for under £100 online, which again, considering it's a niche fragrance, and considering it's such a high quality fragrance, I think is a really good value option if you're moving into slightly more niche options. Now, number 1, I know that, I said obviously between number 3, number 2 and number 1 there was not a lot to pick, and that I said obviously that Red Tobacco was quite a unique fragrance. My number 1 is a very unique fragrance, and one that lots of people don't think is a male fragrance. For me, this winter particularly, the fragrance that I have most enjoyed wearing is the Tom Ford fragrance, and it's Tom Ford Noir de Noir. Now, this is not an all-out blokey masculine scent. A lot of the Tom Ford Private Blend range, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, are advertised as unisex. This has such a beautiful scent. It is sweet, it is sticky, it's syrupy, there's rose, there's saffron, there's a kind of a red wine kind of fruitiness that comes through. I love it because it is unbelievably unique. I have not found other scents, barring straight up clones. So I own a bottle of Armaf Club de Nuit Intense Women that I found, and it's a really good copy. But barring straight up clone copies, I found nothing that obviously smells this way. What I love is that when it dries down on my skin, that rich kind of red wine note and the saffron note take over from the rose. The rose is very present in the open, and it does for me for a couple of moments. When I first bought it and tried it, I wondered maybe although I'd had it on a tester paper, maybe I'd made a mistake. Maybe it was too rose, maybe it was too girly. in a traditional sense. But as it dries down, and I can smell it now in the air around me, the saffron takes over, that red wine kind of pungent, fruity red wine, real depth, mixed with that spicy saffron, create the most beautiful fragrance that, for me, makes me feel at my best. Now, that's a weird thing to say about a fragrance, I know. I work in the service industry, I deal with customers, I deal with the team that I manage now. And for me, if I can wear a fragrance that makes me feel confident, that makes me feel in control and makes me have self-belief, and others around me have commented, you know, it smells great, you smell really good, those things help build for me a picture of who I am, of who you are if you're wearing scents. And this, more than anything over the winter months, when it's been rainy, when it's been cold, has made me feel less bothered by the weather. When I've had difficult situations at work, it's just given me a moment to take a breath, to pick up that scent trail off of my clothing, and it puts me at ease a little bit, makes me feel a little bit better. And for a fragrance to do that, it might sound strange, and it might, you know, sound very left field, but for me, that's part of what fragrance is about. If you've watched Aaron Terence Hughes talk about fragrances on some of the Fragmental channels, watching him, you realise how involved he is with the effects that fragrances have on him and others. And I think it's a really good example of why I love this stuff. Yeah, I love smelling good. Who doesn't? Pick up women, get compliments, you know, customers, girls, guys, whoever you walk past go, "Oof, you're, you know, #1 guy, amazing." And that's lovely, and that's part of it. And I like the intrigue of the different scent profiles. But for me, Noir de Noir, over this winter period, I've moved jobs recently. And I left my old job in a bit of a state because I wasn't treated very well by leadership there. And for a scent, for a fragrance to help make you just have a moment for a second, might sound ridiculous. But I guarantee you, if you experience it, you'll know what I mean. So Noir de Noir is an unbelievably high quality scent. I love the rose once it kind of peters down a bit. The fruity red wine notes and accords. The saffron on top. Elegant, grown up. You can wear it in the evening, you can wear it during the day. It's not as in your face as ombre leather. It's not as rich and complex as the whiskey and incense notes of the Bentley. It's not as sticky and sweet or as gourmand as the red tobacco. It's not as unique in terms of that smoke of a wood fire, the very particular profile in the Maison Margiela. It kind of takes all of the aspects I love most from the other 4 fragrances, and it kind of puts them into something that feels classy, that feels comfortable and cozy, that feels reassuring. So that's my #1, Tom Ford Noir de Noir. You can tell that I love the fragrance. And if you get a chance to smell it, John Lewis, if you're in the UK, I'm assuming Sephora and other places in America will have the ability to go and sample it. Definitely going to have a try. The other thing, it's one of the few Tom Fords. I own Neroli Portofino. I had a small decant of oud wood. They were great. They didn't last very long. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, 4 or 5 hours, but for a fragrance that costs upwards of £200, Noir de Noir still lasts. This bottle here is a 2019 production, and it gives me 7-8 hours at least on clothing and on skin. So whatever they've done with reformulations, Tom Ford Noir de Noir hasn't apparently been affected. It still has good longevity, whereas some of the others maybe don't. So that's another, you know, big point for me. As I said at the beginning, these are my fragrances, right? You might disagree with all of them. You might think that all of them are horrific. You might not like any of them at all. You might think, oh my God, have you not mentioned X, Y, or Z? This is what's in my collection. There's another 50 or so bottles of things that I like for this kind of cold seasons. Not as much of these. I'd love to know what you have as your number 1, 2, maybe 3. I did a top 5 because I'm not sure top 10s are useful. I'm not going to go and buy all 10 fragrances in someone's top 10, but I might pick 1 or 2 of a top 5. But what are your top 5? Pop the comments below. Please, I love comments. I will try and respond to them where I can. Tell me fragrances I might not have mentioned. I'd love to find out more things. It's partly from you guys and other YouTubers that I go and try new things. So if you've got a recommendation based on this that you think I'd love, hit me up down below. I'll happily, if I can, get a decant, get a bottle, try it, give me your opinion as well. Thanks for stopping by. It's been a bit of a long video. Hopefully there will be more 5 and 10, top 5, top 10s. Hopefully they'll be a bit shorter than this one, but thanks for sticking through it all. Or if you just jumped through it, thanks for at least jumping through to the end. Have a really good Christmas. This might be my last video before we get into Christmas. I'll come back in the new year because I've got, you know, plans with my family and with my partner's family. And she's very keen for us to spend some time together where I'm not doing fragrance stuff. So hopefully I'll see you in the new year, if not before. I hope over Christmas you smell good, you feel good, and I hope you have a great Christmas and a really good new year if I don't see you before then. Thanks, and have a good day.